Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, picture this. You're in the middle of a super deep conversation, right? And suddenly you realize you're intensely staring at a random houseplant instead of the other person's eyes. I mean, we've all been there, it happens to the best of us. But as we're about to discover, this incredibly common, everyday quirk actually completely flips the script on human behavior. So let's dive right in and decode the hidden patterns of your mind together.
So I have to ask you directly, why do you think you look away? If you ask most people, they'll confidently tell you it's just a sign of shyness, or maybe a lack of confidence, or just plain nervousness. But here's the crazy part. Psychology suggests that for a lot of us, looking away isn't about being intimidated at all. In fact, it might actually prove that your mind is working on a much, much deeper and more intense level than the person you're talking to. Just take a look at this contrast. On the left, we've got the classic societal assumption, right? Avoidance equals shyness. But on the right, we see the actual fascinating psychological reality, cognitive offloading. This literally shatters the myth entirely. Breaking eye contact is actually an incredibly powerful subconscious tool for mental focus. It's basically your brain's way of clearing out visual distractions so you can perfectly process complex thoughts. So no, you aren't lacking confidence at all. Your mind is just wired for high-level complexity.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Managing Your Cognitive Bandwidth. Okay, so here's our first big key term, cognitive reflection. What is it? Well, it's basically the brain's process of prioritizing the flow of complex thoughts and real-time problem solving over external visual data. When you're trying to explain a massive idea, your brain has to carefully manage its cognitive bandwidth. And here's the thing, human eyes are incredibly data heavy. We take in so much information just by glancing at someone's face. So when you really need to think deeply, your brain essentially goes, nope, shutting off the visual feed just to prioritize your actual thought process. And if we don't look away, well, we risk cognitive overload. Trying to maintain direct eye contact while articulating a really nuanced thought can completely disrupt your brain's ability to organize those ideas efficiently. Think of it like, well, it's like trying to download a massive file on your computer while simultaneously streaming 5 4K videos. The whole system lags, right? You aren't looking away out of fear. You're looking away to prevent that system lag, to prevent total cognitive overload. So the really crucial takeaway here is this. Looking away is literally just you clearing the visual noise. If you ever catch yourself staring at the ceiling while you're explaining a big concept, validate that. It is simply your brain's highly efficient way of perfectly organizing and expressing your ideas without all that messy distraction from visual data. Moving right along to Section 2, the sensory fire hose. This brings us to a truly fascinating mental trait called hyperconnectivity. Now, if you have this trait, your mind doesn't just hear the literal words someone is saying. Not at all. Instead, you're connecting every single detail to a much larger picture of meaning and consequence. You're instantly analyzing their tone of voice, the underlying emotion, and even the absolute tiniest, most subtle shifts in their facial expression. That is a huge amount of data to process all at once. Because of that hyperconnectivity, direct eye contact can quite literally feel like a sensory fire hose. You aren't just casually looking at someone, you are being blasted with a high-pressure stream of emotional and social data. For a highly connected mind, sustaining that gaze means taking the full, exhausting force of that fire hose straight to the brain. Which naturally leads us to this state, social vigilance. When you're constantly drinking from that sensory fire hose, your brain gets incredibly busy just reading between the lines. You're processing so much subtext that, ironically, you absolutely have to break eye contact just to stay anchored to the actual conversation at hand. You look away so you don't lose the thread of the literal words while your brain is working overtime translating all that heavy emotional data. All right, let's shift gears a bit for Section 3, sensitivity and emotional regulation. Now, social sensitivity is a trait where your brain actually burns significantly more energy during social contact than the average person. If you're someone who often feels totally exhausted after a lot of social interaction, well, this is exactly why. Your highly sensitive nervous system is running hot, burning fuel at a rapid pace just to process the social connection. It's not a flaw at all. It's just a biological reality of how your specific nervous system is wired. Because of that, looking away acts as a subconscious, super healthy tool for emotional regulation. Think of it as your brain's way of just hitting the pause button. You're briefly stepping out of the intensity of a direct connection to prevent yourself from feeling entirely overwhelmed. You aren't being rude and you're not antisocial, you're instinctively protecting your mental space so that you can continue to respond with clarity rather than just panicking and reacting out of social stress. And this ties in beautifully with our next concept, having an internal locus of evaluation. This basically means you rely on internal validation. You don't feel this constant driving need to perform standard social rituals, like forced, unwavering eye contact, just to prove to someone that you're paying attention. Because your self-worth is already stable. You value the actual deep quality of the connection way more than just performing the expected ritual of the gaze. You'd much rather truly understand the exchange than perform perfectly for the room. Bringing us to Section 4, guarded empathy. Now, this part speaks directly to those of you who might feel like maybe you had to grow up a little too fast. A lot of times in childhood, some of us had to learn to read people really, really quickly in order to anticipate problems or navigate super complex family dynamics, right? And that rapid reading of the room, it creates a highly protective emotional nature as you get older.
And that protective nature manifests as guarded empathy. You see so much in a single look. You perceive the anxiety, the anger, or the sadness in someone else so vividly that you sometimes choose to look away simply to maintain your own boundaries. It is a profound self-care mechanism. By breaking the gaze, you're preserving your own psychological safety. It's an incredibly powerful way of silently saying, hey, I understand exactly what you're feeling, but I need to protect my own peace right now.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, your quietest habit decoded. Let's quickly review the 5 signs of a truly complex mind: cognitive reflection, hyperconnectivity, a sensitive nervous system, an internal locus of evaluation, and guarded empathy. If you find yourself averting your gaze, there's a very good chance you're actually using several, if not all of these tools. You're managing your bandwidth, filtering a sensory fire hose, regulating your energy, staying true to your internal values, and protecting your psychological safety. So seriously, never ever apologize for staring at the ceiling while you explain a brilliant idea. I want to leave you with this absolutely powerful quote from the source material. It's not shyness. It's the sound of a complex mind clearing the noise so it can find the truth. Just let that sink in for a second. You have full permission to completely own your unique wiring. You aren't avoiding the person, you are searching for the truth of the thought. Which leaves us with one final, pretty exciting question for this explainer. What other quiet habits will you decode? I mean, if something as incredibly simple as where you rest your eyes reveals this much about your brilliant, complex mind, just imagine what other hidden powers your everyday behaviors are waiting to reveal. Stay aware, keep analyzing your world, and remember that the quietest habits are very often the clearest signs of a rare mind. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.